The next stanza. But you who seek to give and merit fame, if you give someone fame, who gives fame? Critic gives fame. Who merits fame? Is either talking about the critic and the author, like which we'll get more evidence as we go through, or it's just talking about the critic. The critic. The critic gives fame, and it also you seek to merit fame because the critic wants to get famous as well. But I'm not sure if it's. I think it's I think it's just the critic. But you who seek to give and merit fame, you not only seek to give fame, but you also want to earn your own fame by writing these reviews. And justly bear and be able to honestly and justly and without, you want to be able to earn the name critic's noble name. And he might be being facetious here, right? Like noble name, like a little bit elevated, a little bit effusive. Um, But he also might be referring to the fact that, you know what, being a real critic, being a great critic is important, is helpful. And there are lines I think that support that. Um, but the N in the end, the noble name, that's alliteration. So yeah, be sure yourself in your own reach to know how far your genius, taste, and learning go. Watch out beyond your death, but be discreet and mark that point where sense and dullness meet. Again, it's kind of condescending here, you know. Yeah, mark that point where sense and dullness meet. Like he's saying, everybody, all these critics. He's literally. I feel like he's being a little bit facetious, and we can argue that, right? Like it's not obvious, maybe we can argue that like a noble name is just he's just being direct and literally saying a good critic is noble, or he's just making fun of a critic, and that's why I think that we can argue this, right? Because there's a lot of evidence in this stanza here that suggests that you know maybe he's demeaning them and maligning the critic. Like why would the critic seek to merit fame? Like why does the critic want to be famous? Like that actually makes the critic look bad. Um, Maybe the author wants to be famous, the author wants to be celebrated, but it's like, so he could be. We could argue that he's poking at the critic. You seek to give and merit fame, so you're trying to get famous. So there's a potential conflict of interest there. It's not just about giving an objective review or criticism of some book or some poem or some play. And then saying, oh, the justly bear a critic's noble name, like making fun of that word. So again, we could argue that. And he's giving him, for your genius taste. So he's like saying, oh, your genius taste and learning go. And then at the end, he's just like, yeah, but you're an idiot. Well, not really an idiot, but he's saying, mark the point where sense and dullness meet. Like he's saying, I mean, how could you say that in the same stanza when you call this person genius? So I think it's arguable that we could say this whole stanza is facetious and sort of sarcastic. So now the teacher might disagree, and the teacher, could mark it down, but you got to take shots, and that's the thing with this stuff. And you have to move forward. I mean, I'm very practical. You have stuff to do. You got to move forward. You don't have all day. You need to knock out the paper. You've got only a certain number of hours, certain number of days. You know, I would start as soon as I can, obviously, and do this. This is the hard work, I think. I think the hardest work is reading the poem repeatedly, doing the preliminary research, talking to your teacher, talking to other students, looking words up, like, and sort of just marinating on like what it's about, what's the overarching theme, or what's the overarching sort of perspective. And that's sort of the sense that I got. I love long poems, because it just gives you a lot of room um, to skip lines that you don't understand, and you can really find the meaty lines that you do understand, and and it's I just there's there's value in shorter poems, and a lot of times the shorter poems, a lot of teachers, even in college, they'll sort of explicate them a lot, so that they might not have time to do all of them, like Emily Dickinson, for example. She is on the shorter side usually. So those are just packed. Those are really packed poems. So you got to unpack them, but yeah, it's just, but yeah. So I'm just very practical. You have a certain amount of time. Let's just knock this out. So we have to argue that. And you know what? If we don't think we can argue it, or we think we're not gonna be able to make a good point, then we just delete this quote and say, you know what? Let's not. It doesn't support our thesis, or we can't. We're not sure if it supports our thesis. We're not sure if our teacher's gonna believe us in terms of this argument. So let's omit that. All right. So here we go. Um, While memory prevails, one science, only one genius fit. All right. I like that, but nothing here I want to use. Because you've got to discriminate, obviously. We're going to do two parts. We only have room for one part. But there are some really good quotes in the second part. First, follow nature, adjustment frame, narrowing nature, life force, spirits feed, each motion, heaven. For wit and judgment are often at strife. Okay. So wit being the author, right? Judgment being the critic. So they're often at strife anyways, just in general, right? They'll meant to each other's aid like man and wife. Usually the man is going to totally parallel with wit, so man will be the author, judgment will be the wife. 'Tis more to guide than spur the muse's steed. And the muse is usually going to be, I guess, the critic, because usually the wife is the muse, the man's muse. I mean, at least, especially when, yeah, so, just want to guide the writer and spur the muse's steed. He's just restrain his fewer than provoke his speed. The winged courser shows most true metal when you check his course. So maybe when judgment reference dice are meant to each other's aid like a man and wife, I guess we can kind of argue that. He's sort of talking smack. He's deferring, I think, more to the author. Like maybe you know, yeah. So we might be able to go over that. Well, we'll see. And then those nature like liberty. Okay. He's talking about Greece and then all these illusions. Don't want to check out the illusions. Apothecaries. Homer. And to amuse. So sometimes I like to, look up the stuff and have illusions and stuff. It depends on the essay. It depends on what I'm writing, who the teacher is. There's so many factors that come into play. But on this one, I don't need to. I don't. It's not an argument that I'm making. I'm not like saying, oh, the myriad illusions that he makes, the literary illusions that he makes, all add up to this. Or these three illusions. Like that's something that perhaps a better essay writer can spend time to focus on. This essay right here we're gonna go for right down the middle. Music resembles poetry, music, Pegasus, Browns, Kings. Okay, here we go. Or if you must offend against the precept, never try and dress its end. So if you must offend and talk smack about some book, some author, um, don't don't. I'm guessing don't share what happens at the end. You know, like when people give away like movie spoilers. I think that's what it means. Because I couldn't think of another thing that it meant. Like never transgress. So how would you transgress an ending? You would talk smack about it. Nah, you talk about it because you want the reader to read it. Um, so yeah, I think that's what it is. Um, Let it be seldom and compelled by need. Um, at least their precedent to plead. The critic else proceeds without remorse, seizes your fame and puts his laws in force. Yeah. So I think that's what this means. And again, without remorse, it's very negative towards the critic. Um, I don't think I'm going to use these lines. The other ones I like the most. To whose presumptuous thoughts. Homa, Bay. To admire superior sense. So the increase of ages grow. All right, this is a good start. We could talk about this, but I think we got plenty here um, that to work with. Yeah, so we'll check out the next video and we'll start part 2. This could be enough, but I usually like to try to be as thorough as I can, so we can do part 1 and part 2, and then just decide how we're going to structure the essay, what we're going to delete, etc. Thank you very much.